Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a world where your emotions don't dictate your actions, where you are not at the mercy of external events or the behavior of others. A world where you have the power to respond, not react. What would it feel like to wake up every day knowing that you can master your emotions, that you are the one in control of your mental and emotional state? We live in a time where distractions are endless, where the pressure to do, to achieve, and to constantly perform seems never-ending. But in the midst of this chaos, there is a stillness within each of us, an incredible capacity for inner peace and emotional mastery waiting to be unlocked. The question is, are you willing to step into that power? Are you ready to learn how to take back control of your emotional life and begin the journey toward becoming the best version of yourself? The journey to mastering our emotions begins with a fundamental step: self-awareness. We live in a world that constantly demands our attention, where distractions are abundant and the noise of life can drown out the most important voice, our own. But what if, in all this chaos, the key to thriving lies in our ability to pause, reflect, and understand our inner landscape? Self-awareness is the process of tuning into our own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. It's about observing ourselves without judgment, allowing us to identify what triggers us and why we react the way we do. For many of us, this is a difficult practice because we are conditioned to think that our emotions are external, caused by people, situations, or events. But in truth, our emotions are born from within us. They arise from our thoughts, beliefs, and interpretations of the world around us. Consider the way we respond to stress. When faced with a challenging situation, the immediate emotional response can be overwhelming. Fear, anxiety, frustration, or anger. But how often do we take a moment to ask ourselves why we feel this way? Why do certain events evoke such intense emotions while others do not? When we become aware of the underlying causes of our reactions, we take the first step toward reclaiming control over our emotional response. This practice of self-awareness requires patience and honesty. It involves taking a step back from the immediate reaction and asking ourselves, what is going on inside me right now? It might be uncomfortable at first, as it forces us to confront our vulnerabilities, insecurities, and biases. But it's through this discomfort that we begin to understand our true selves, to uncover the patterns that influence our behavior, and to realize that our emotional state is not a reflection of external circumstances, but rather a mirror of our internal beliefs. The real power of self-awareness lies in its ability to give us choices. When we are not aware of why we react in a certain way, we are simply reacting. We are on autopilot, driven by unconscious patterns that may no longer serve us. But when we bring awareness to our emotions, we can choose how we want to respond. This shift from reaction to conscious choice is the cornerstone of emotional mastery. It empowers us to break free from the cycle of automatic responses and to respond with intention and purpose. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that our emotions are uncontrollable, that we have no say in how we feel. But self-awareness teaches us otherwise. It reminds us that we are not slaves to our feelings. Rather, we are the creators of our emotional experiences. This shift in perspective is transformative. It allows us to view our emotions not as obstacles to be avoided, but as valuable sources of information about who we are and what we need. Once we begin to practice self-awareness, we become more attuned to our emotional state in real time. Instead of reacting impulsively, we can pause and ask ourselves, what is happening within me right now, and why? This simple question can create a space between stimulus and response, giving us the opportunity to choose how we want to engage with the world. Over time, this practice becomes second nature, and we develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and our emotional landscape. However, self-awareness alone is not enough. To truly master our emotions, we must also take responsibility for them. This is where emotional responsibility comes into play. Emotional responsibility means recognizing that we are the ones who ultimately control how we feel. No one can make us feel anything unless we allow them to. Our emotions are not the result of someone else's actions, but rather the outcome of our interpretation of those actions. It's easy to blame others for how we feel. When someone cuts us off in traffic, we might feel angry and frustrated. When a colleague criticizes our work, we might feel defensive or hurt. But the truth is, our emotional response is not dictated by the actions of others. It is shaped by how we choose to perceive those actions. If we are angry, it's because we have chosen to interpret someone's behavior in a way that triggers anger within us. If we feel hurt, it's because we have decided that the criticism reflects something negative about our worth. Taking responsibility for our emotions means acknowledging that we have the power to choose how we feel, regardless of external circumstances. It's not about denying our emotions or suppressing them. Rather, it's about recognizing that we have control over our reactions. When we take ownership of our feelings, we stop giving others the power to dictate our emotional state. We stop being passive participants in our own lives and begin to actively shape our experiences. One of the most powerful aspects of emotional responsibility is that it allows us to break free from the cycle of blame and victimhood. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that someone else is responsible for our emotional well-being. We might think, if only my boss would appreciate my work more, I wouldn't feel undervalued. Or if my partner were more supportive, I wouldn't feel so anxious. But when we take responsibility for our emotions, we realize that no one else is responsible for how we feel. We are the architects of our emotional experiences. This realization can be both empowering and liberating. It frees us from the constant need for validation from others and enables us to find peace within ourselves. We no longer have to wait for someone else to change in order to feel happy or fulfilled. Instead, we can choose to create the emotional state we desire, regardless of external circumstances. Of course, taking responsibility for our emotions does not mean that we ignore our feelings or pretend that everything is fine when it's not. It simply means that we stop allowing our emotions to control us. We acknowledge that our feelings are valid, but we recognize that we have the power to choose how we respond to them. This ability to respond rather than react is what allows us to cultivate emotional resilience, the ability to bounce back from challenges with strength and clarity. When we embrace emotional responsibility, we also become more empathetic toward others. We recognize that everyone is responsible for their own emotions, and we stop expecting others to make us feel better or meet our emotional needs. This shift in mindset creates healthier relationships as we begin to interact with others from a place of mutual respect and understanding, rather than from a place of emotional dependency. Mastering our emotions is not a one-time achievement, but an ongoing process. It requires practice, self-reflection, and a commitment to growth. But when we embrace self-awareness and emotional responsibility, we begin to unlock a level of control over our emotional lives that many of us never thought possible. We become the leaders of our own emotional experiences, and in doing so, we create a life that is more fulfilling, balanced, and resilient. When we think about the boundaries in our lives, we often focus on physical spaces, our homes, workplaces, or social circles. But boundaries are not just about the space we occupy. They are also about our emotional well-being. Emotional boundaries are the invisible lines we draw to protect ourselves from the overwhelming demands of the outside world. They allow us to engage with others and the world around us without losing ourselves in the process. Setting emotional boundaries is one of the most important steps in maintaining mental and emotional health. Without them, we risk becoming overwhelmed by the expectations and pressures of others. We may feel pulled in different directions, constantly trying to meet the needs of those around us while neglecting our own. This imbalance can lead to burnout, stress, and emotional exhaustion. However, when we establish clear emotional boundaries, we create a framework for healthy interactions that respects both our needs and the needs of others. Emotional boundaries are about understanding what is yours to own and what is not. It's about recognizing that you are not responsible for the feelings, actions, or well-being of others. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that we must be everything to everyone, that we must always be available to listen, to help, to fix. But this mindset can be draining. We forget that we are allowed to say no, to prioritize our own needs, and to create space for ourselves without feeling guilty. By setting boundaries, we make it clear to others that we value ourselves enough to protect our emotional health. We communicate that we cannot give from an empty cup, and that in order to support others, we must first take care of ourselves. Establishing boundaries is not about being selfish. It's about recognizing that in order to be the best version of ourselves, we must honor our own needs. It's a way of ensuring that we have the emotional resources to be present, compassionate, and effective in our interactions with others. This process requires us to become aware of our emotional triggers and the situations that leave us feeling drained or overwhelmed. It's essential to notice when we are giving too much of ourselves and when we need to step back. But setting boundaries is not always easy. It can be uncomfortable, especially if we have been conditioned to believe that we must constantly please others or meet their expectations. There may be moments of guilt or fear of rejection, fear of disappointing others. But in these moments, we must remind ourselves that setting boundaries is an act of self-respect. It's not about shutting others out. It's about creating a healthier dynamic where both our needs and the needs of others can coexist. As we begin to establish emotional boundaries, we may find that some relationships shift. Some people may resist the new boundaries we set, as they are accustomed to having unlimited access to our time, energy, and emotions. But this is a natural part of the process. When we change the way we engage with the world changes in response. People may push back, but ultimately, those who respect us will understand and support our need for boundaries. And those who don't respect our boundaries are often the ones who will drain us the most. Learning to set boundaries also involves understanding the importance of saying no. It's easy to feel like we need to say yes to every request or opportunity that comes our way, but this often leads to burnout. Saying no does not mean we are rejecting the other person. It means we are choosing to honor our own needs. It's a powerful tool for maintaining balance in our lives and for protecting our emotional resources. When we say no, we open up space for the things that truly matter to us, whether it's time for rest, time for personal growth, or time for the relationships that nourish us. As we establish emotional boundaries, we also begin to build resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from challenges, to face adversity with strength and clarity. It is the ability to maintain our sense of self even when the world around us is chaotic or difficult. And one of the most important factors in building resilience is emotional boundaries. When we have clear boundaries, we are less likely to be swept up by the demands and emotions of others. We are less likely to take on the weight of their problems or let their negativity affect us. Boundaries act as a shield, protecting us from emotional overload and giving us the space to respond thoughtfully and calmly to difficult situations. This allows us to maintain a sense of inner peace, even in the face of adversity. Resilience is also about learning to recover from setbacks, not just from external challenges, but from the emotional turbulence we experience in our own lives. We all face moments of doubt, frustration, or disappointment. But when we have established emotional boundaries, we can separate ourselves from these negative emotions. We can acknowledge them without letting them define us or control our actions. This ability to detach from negative emotions and return to a place of emotional equilibrium is what makes us resilient. The more we practice setting boundaries, the more resilient we become. We stop allowing external events to dictate our emotional state, and we start to recognize that we are in control of how we respond. We become more confident in our ability to navigate challenges, knowing that we have the tools to protect our emotional well-being and to bounce back from adversity. Resilience also involves learning to face discomfort with grace. When we face difficult situations or emotions, it's easy to want to avoid or escape them, but resilience requires us to lean into discomfort, to face our fears and to process our emotions rather than suppress them. Emotional boundaries give us the space to do this, to sit with our emotions, acknowledge them, and choose how to respond in a way that is aligned with our values and goals. By building emotional resilience, we create a solid foundation for our personal growth. We begin to see challenges not as insurmountable obstacles, but as opportunities for learning and growth. Each time we set a boundary or face a difficult situation, we become stronger and more equipped to handle whatever comes our way. This resilience is not about avoiding pain or hardship. It's about learning to navigate the inevitable ups and downs of life with strength, clarity, and a sense of purpose. When we learn to set emotional boundaries and build resilience, we become less reactive to the world around us. We no longer feel at the mercy of external circumstances. Instead, we are empowered to choose how we respond, how we engage, and how we move forward. Our emotional state is no longer determined by the whims of others or the chaos of the world. We become the architects of our emotional lives, creating a foundation of stability, peace, and growth that allows us to navigate life's challenges with confidence and clarity. In the end, boundaries and resilience are not just tools for managing our emotions. They are essential for living a fulfilling, balanced life. When we set clear emotional boundaries, we protect our emotional health, create space for our own needs, and foster healthier relationships. And when we build resilience, we develop the strength to face challenges with grace, bounce back from adversity, and grow in the process. Together, these practices empower us to live with intention, to respond thoughtfully to the world around us, and to become the best version of ourselves. We live in a world where distractions are endless, where the pressure to keep moving and doing is constant. In the midst of this, we often lose sight of the one thing that can ground us, the one thing that can help us find clarity and peace: mindfulness. Mindfulness is not just a practice, it's a way of being. It's the ability to be fully present in the moment, to engage with the world without judgment, and to cultivate a deeper awareness of our thoughts, feelings, and surroundings. It is an essential tool in mastering our emotions, for it allows us to observe our emotional states without becoming overwhelmed by them. Mindfulness starts with the simple act of paying attention. It's about noticing what's happening right now, without getting caught up in the past or future. When we are mindful, we are not dwelling on past mistakes or worrying about what might happen tomorrow. Instead, we are here, in the present moment, experiencing life as it unfolds. This practice is especially powerful when it comes to managing our emotions. Too often, we react to situations impulsively, driven by automatic emotional responses. We get angry at the person who cuts us off in traffic, frustrated by the colleague who doesn't pull their weight, or anxious about an upcoming event. These emotions can take over, shaping our behavior and leaving us feeling out of control. But mindfulness allows us to pause before we react, to observe our emotions and decide how we want to respond. By practicing mindfulness, we create a space between stimulus and response. Instead of reacting impulsively, we can take a step back, breathe, and assess the situation with clarity. We can choose not to let our emotions control us. This ability to respond rather than react is one of the most powerful tools in emotional mastery. It doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. It means acknowledging them, understanding them, and choosing how to engage with them. Through mindfulness, we can learn to recognize our triggers and emotional patterns, which gives us the power to decide how we want to handle them. The beauty of mindfulness lies in its simplicity. It doesn't require special tools or complex techniques. All it requires is the willingness to be present and aware. This can be done through simple practices like deep breathing, focusing on the sensations in our body, or paying attention to the thoughts that arise in our minds. Over time, these small moments of mindfulness accumulate, helping us to build a greater sense of self-awareness and emotional control. It also fosters a sense of peace, as we learn to let go of the constant need to control or predict what will happen next. We begin to trust ourselves and the present moment, knowing that we have the capacity to handle whatever arises. One of the greatest benefits of mindfulness is that it allows us to develop a deeper understanding of ourselves. It helps us to see our emotions not as obstacles, but as messengers. Each emotion carries valuable information about what is happening inside us. When we are mindful, we can ask ourselves why we feel a certain way and what that emotion is trying to tell us. Are we angry because we feel disrespected? Are we anxious because we are uncertain about the future? By paying attention to our emotions with curiosity rather than judgment, we can gain insight into our needs, desires, and fears. This awareness can then guide us in making healthier choices and responding more effectively to the challenges we face. As we continue to practice mindfulness, we also become more resilient in the face of adversity. Mindfulness helps us to stay grounded during difficult moments, to maintain our clarity and focus even when emotions run high. Instead of being swept away by the storm of our feelings, we can stand firm in the center of it, observing without being consumed. This resilience is what allows us to bounce back from setbacks and continue moving forward with strength and grace. It's a skill that grows stronger with practice, enabling us to navigate the ups and downs of life with greater ease. Alongside mindfulness, another key to mastering our emotions is cultivating inner strength. Inner strength is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who we are and what we stand for. It's the ability to remain steadfast in the face of challenges, to stay true to our values, and to trust ourselves even when the world around us feels uncertain. Inner strength is not about being invincible or immune to hardship. It's about having the resilience and fortitude to stay grounded no matter what life throws our way. At its core, inner strength is about self-trust. It's the belief that we have the capacity to handle whatever comes our way. It's understanding that we are capable of facing difficult situations, processing our emotions, and emerging stronger on the other side. Inner strength doesn't come from external validation or approval. It comes from within. It's the result of knowing ourselves deeply, understanding our own needs and boundaries, and having the courage to honor them. When we cultivate inner strength, we stop relying on others to define our worth. We become our own source of stability, confidence, and peace. The process of building inner strength begins with self-awareness and self-acceptance. It requires us to be honest with ourselves about our strengths and weaknesses, our desires and fears, and our values and goals. We must learn to embrace our imperfections, to accept ourselves as we are, without judgment or shame. This acceptance creates a foundation of self-compassion, which is essential for cultivating inner strength. When we are kind to ourselves, we are better able to face challenges with resilience and grace. We stop beating ourselves up for our mistakes or shortcomings, and instead we learn from them and grow. Inner strength also comes from our ability to stay focused on our own path, regardless of external pressures. In a world that constantly demands our attention and approval, it's easy to get distracted by the opinions and expectations of others. But true inner strength lies in the ability to stay true to our own values and goals, even when others try to steer us in a different direction. It's about trusting our own judgment and making decisions that align with our authentic selves, rather than trying to please others or meet their expectations. As we build inner strength, we also become more resilient in the face of adversity. Life is full of challenges, some small, some large, but when we have inner strength, we are better equipped to handle whatever comes our way. We develop the ability to face setbacks with determination, to stay grounded in the face of uncertainty, and to keep moving forward, even when the path ahead is unclear. Inner strength is what allows us to keep going when the going gets tough, to persevere through difficulties, and to rise again after we fall. Perhaps most importantly, inner strength gives us the freedom to be ourselves. When we trust ourselves and believe in our own abilities, we are free from the need for external validation or approval. We no longer seek constant reassurance from others, because we know our worth. This freedom allows us to live authentically, to pursue our passions, and to make choices that are aligned with our true selves. We stop living for others' expectations and start living for our own. Together, mindfulness and inner strength form a powerful combination in the pursuit of emotional mastery. Mindfulness allows us to stay present, to observe our emotions without judgment, and to respond thoughtfully. Inner strength provides the foundation of self-trust and resilience that enables us to navigate life's challenges with confidence. When we cultivate both mindfulness and inner strength, we become the architects of our own emotional experiences. We stop being victims of our circumstances and start taking control of our emotional lives, creating the peace, clarity, and resilience needed to thrive. In a world that constantly pushes us to react, to be pulled by the tides of other people's needs and emotions, mastering your own emotional state is not just a skill, it's a necessity. Through mindfulness and inner strength, we gain the tools to stay grounded, to stay present, and to stay true to who we are, regardless of what life throws at us. The path to emotional mastery is not always easy, but it is the most worthwhile journey you can embark on. As you step forward, remember that you hold the power to respond thoughtfully to every situation, to protect your emotional health with clear boundaries, and to rise stronger from each challenge. You are the architect of your emotional experiences, and by embracing this truth, you create a life of peace, resilience, and purpose. The choice is yours. Master your emotions or be mastered by them. The time to take control is now.